But as usual, there was plenty of pushback on the Treasury's actions, especially from ranking member Senator Richard Shelby. Take a look.
I believe that had the Treasury, as we look back, and the Fed exercised different judgment and proceeded in a more deliberative and measured manner, the most severe aspects of this financial crisis could very well likely have been avoided.
Well, he thinks the worst could still be yet to come. Joining us right now is Senator Richard Shelby, Republican of Alabama and ranking member of the Banking Committee. Good morning, Senator. Good to see you.
Good morning, Alexis. Good to see you.
I love to see you in these hearings, and I know how you feel about this financial crisis. Are you still as concerned, and if so, why?
I'm concerned because although we've gone through the stress test, 19 banks, a number of those banks have yet to meet their capital requirements. And secondly, we have expended billions, some $600 billion into these banks. These banks are not standing alone. A lot of them are standing there with taxpayers' money holding them up. I believe that with the financial crisis is moving in the right direction when they start paying that money back, all those banks, and are standing on their own, and people have confidence in them. Then you're going to see the economy really move.
It's interesting, Senator, because I think I've been very much in your camp on the concerns here surrounding this, although I would give a certain level of kudos to the Treasury Department in both the releasing of the stress test, the way they massaged it into the market, and in fairness, they said $74 billion had to be raised, and thus far it looks like either commitments or money raised is about 2/3 of the way accomplished in just a week. Those are pretty good numbers, aren't they?
They're on the right road that way, especially if they can raise that money and they're doing it in the private sector and not go back to the taxpayer's window.
What about taking the money back? I know we're not supposed to get guidelines until June 8th. Why the holdup? What's going on behind the scenes?
Well, I'm not privy to everything that's going on behind the scenes, but I can tell you a lot of these banks are not able to stand on their own yet, and they can't pay their money back. The ones that can pay their money back, they ought to have a fast road to doing so, because the taxpayer will start recovering some of that money, and the sooner the better, and the banks will be stronger because they will be standing on their own as they should be.
One of the most heated parts of the conversations yesterday surrounded the health and well-being of small businesses. If this administration, in particular the use of the SBA, is doing enough to help those small businesses, have they demonstrated that they are, or are they falling down in this regard?
I think they've fallen down thus far. There's a lot of concern. You saw it on the Banking Committee by Democrats, senators, and Republicans, because we're hearing from the small business community all over the country that they're not making loans. Money is hard to come by, even credit-worthy customers. That's not the way to bank. We've got to have flexibility, and we've got to have liquidity in our marketplace, especially the financial markets.
Senator, I want to switch gears for just a moment. Our colleagues over at the Fox News Channel have learned this morning that a group of GOP members are calling for a bipartisan commission to investigate House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and what she knew about interrogation tactics. Do you support this, and what do you hope to achieve if, in fact, you do support it?
Well, I assume that's a House proposal. I hadn't heard that in the Senate. You know, the Speaker is the Speaker of the House. I'm not in the House. I hadn't been there in 23 years. But whatever the House wants to do in there with their own judgment, fine. But there is a big disagreement on what happened and when and who knew what regarding the CIA and the Speaker, Senator Graham, Congressman Gauss at that time, and myself.
We heard just last night that a plot here in New York was thankfully taken down with 4 different gentlemen who were looking actually to do some real damage here in the northern New York area. Is this a story, I guess, that we have put on the back burner that now needs to move up, since we've been so focused on the economy that at the end of the day, national security should be our #1 priority?
Well, I'll tell you what, national security will be our #1 priority. Again, it shouldn't never be anything except, number one, if we have an attack, which we all pray we won't do in this country against our own people, but there are people, there are terrorists in this country, there are people that will do us harm, and we should not sleep on our security.
All right, Senator Richard Shelby, as always, great pleasure seeing you. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
All right, well, several retailers reporting earnings today. A couple are already out with mixed earnings, with some strong sales, depends.